טוב, בוקר טוב או צהריים טובים לכולם. שמי זה אשר בן אריה, and I'm the Dean of the School of Social Work and also the Director of the Harov Institute. And I'm very pleased to be here today and share a session that for me it's, I would even say, a little bit emotional. The session will be presented by a number of younger faculty from the School of Social Work. The majority of them, I could call them even my former students and current colleagues. And it has to do with the work that the Harov Institute has done and other people has done in conjunction with the Harov Institute in the aftermath of October 7. I will start with a personal story that I'm telling whenever I'm talking about October 7. It's an aftermath, it will be very short, and then we will move on to the lectures. Everybody remembers where he was, at least in Israel, everybody remembers where he was on October 6 or October 7 when the terrorist attack on Israel started. I was probably in the most unique places than anybody else in this room, because on October 6, I'm willing to bet, Tali, on October 6 I was in Churchill, Manitoba, on the Hudson Bay, filling the last item on my bucket list for my 60th birthday and seeing polar bears. So I saw a polar bear from 15 meters on October 6, and I saw the Northern Light, and then on October 6 evening, I went there to celebrate in the only restaurant that exists in Churchill, Manitoba. And around 11 p.m., my older son woke me up and said, open the TV and start getting back, because my younger son he was still those days a combat soldier in the regular service, and he was called back to the Gaza, and I was starting to schlep back. But I'm telling the story because on the way back, I think it was October 10 or 11, I got the first phone call from the Ministry of Social Services. And for the first time ever, and those who knows me know that I'm not very generous in giving compliments to the Ministry of Social Services in the last 35 years I've been working with them. But I got the first phone call from the Ministry of Social Services telling me, look, we have kidnapped children. We don't have a clue what to do and if one day they will come back. Would you help us, the Harov Institute, to develop a protocol how to deal with the kidnapped children? And my answer was, of course, yes, we will do it, but I have two conditions. One is that we will get access to everybody that will be involved with the kidnapped children, not only the social workers, also the Shin Bet interrogators and the soldiers. And 3 weeks before the first child came back, we've done the first training for the Shin Bet coordinators in their headquarters in Tel Aviv. And second is that we will develop more protocols, because there are more children, families, who we don't have a clue how to deal with. And that developed into a protocol of children who were kidnapped, and then women who were kidnapped, and children who witnessed atrocities, and children who lost their friends, and communities in distress. And that led to a slogan that we will use. It sounds much better in Hebrew, and that was Simu lev la'iladim, or please notice the kids in everything that is happening, because everybody was preoccupied with anything that is happening, and people started forgetting the kids. And you'll see some of those findings from what the kid told us in some of the studies we've seen today. So we've been heavily involved in that work, and we recruited faculty from the School of Social Work and other places to be involved in that work. And all of it was done through the lenses of child participation, children's rights, and child well-being, the way we see it. And noticing the children was the theme that we've tried to implement all along. So based on the work we've done, we've selected a number of them, and we will start with the first talk. And the first talk will be by Dr. Hanita Kosher and Dr. Iris Tzadok. The two of them are faculty members at the School of Social Work, and they are talking about the protocol or a consequence of the protocol that Hanita was involved in, how to help children who lost their friends. But that led to a focus group with children in the envelope of the Gaza Strip. We still need to find a better word than envelope, but that's the word everybody is using. The envelope of the Gaza Strip, and they were talking with children directly And as always, whenever we talk with children directly, we are surprised by how wise they are and how they see things that we didn't see. So you'll see it also in this study. So Hanita, please.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. So our presentation today will focus on the implication of the Iron Swords War on the friendships and peace relation of children from communities surrounding Gaza, the envelope of Gaza. And in our presentation today, we would like to share with you the process of knowledge development we underwent during the last year. It was a journey, a real journey that began with developing knowledge based on the expertise and perspective of professionals, meaning adults' perspectives, and involved into the recognition that our knowledge should be based on the voices of the children themselves. So the first stage began, as Asher just told us, as a part of the knowledge development process at the Haruv Institute. A few weeks after the outbreak of the war, we have been asked to draft a framework for working with children affected by the war, focusing on a very unique topic, how the war impacted children's friendships and peers relations, and how to help them cope with the disruption to these relationships. And it was important, I think, for three reasons. First, as we all know, in October 7th Hamas massacre, children lost their friends who were killed, murdered. Second, many children's friends were brutally abducted to Gaza. We have to say that most of them returned home, but unfortunately, as we all know, 2 children are still abducted. And third, we have to remember that before the war, children from communities surrounding Gaza attended regional schools with friends and peers from various communities in the area. However, following the war, these communities were evacuated, as we know, to different parts of the country. And as a result, children were forced actually to be separated from their friends, schoolmates, youth movement peers, etc. So we got into the work and developed the framework, and we decided to base it on 3 theoretical bases or contexts: friendship and peer relations, trauma, and children's rights. And we will share with you now some insight on the basis or on the context of friendships and peer relations and its interaction with trauma. So we know that children grow and develop in several environments or contexts. The most familiar one, the most familiar environment, and the one that I think receives the most attention is the family. However, another equally important context is the peer context. Now, by peers, of course, we mean to all interaction children have with age mates who are not family members. Now, we know today that peers complement and even sometimes supplement the family system. We also know that friendships and peer relations are vital to children's well-being and development, as we can read it over here. But I think what is more important that we also know today that friends and peers relation can promote resilience among children, and it was found that friends and peer groups are particularly effective protective factors for children with adverse experience, for example, children that experience maltreatment. So this is all about individual trauma. What about the role of friendships and peer relation in our context, which is mass trauma? And let me say something about mass trauma. We all know that children from communities surrounding Gaza experience mass trauma, okay, which refers to extremely adverse conditions that affect large group of people, included war and terrorist attacks, but also, for example, natural disaster. And we were surprised to find a few studies about that. It was found in several studies that maintaining friendship during and after mass trauma events provide children with social support, which is crucial for their recovery. But I think what is most interesting that although only few studies, but they examined children peers relation and friendship specific regard to war and terrorism, and those studies found the same, that social support from both family and peers can shield children's mental health after this disaster. So giving that into account, we'll move to the second step, and I will now show you some of the practical part of our protocol or framework. So our framework included 3 intervention strategies, if I can call that like that, for working with children on the aspect, of course, on friendships and peer relation, individual, group, and community intervention. which was very nice. Back then when we wrote it, we thought it was an excellent protocol. We were so proud of ourselves, but we will see what happened with that. And let me give you only one example from the protocol. I want to say that we have to take into account that the framework or the protocol, how we will, mitveh, was written on the eve of the return of the kidnapped children from Gaza. And therefore, what we saw that what mostly concerned professionals and parents was how to prepare the children for the return of the friends from Gaza. What do you say to them? And I wanted to show you one example how adults prepare children to that very big mission. In the psychoeducational preparation process, you have to explain to the child what he should expect from meeting his friend who returned from Gaza. It is important to take into account that a meeting between the child who has returned from captivity and his friends will not always be possible in the first stage. Therefore, it is necessary to explain to the children and adolescents that their friends will undergo a gradual process of returning to routine and life, also in terms of exposure to the people around them. In the first stage, they will be allowed to be with the family, and only later will they be exposed to other people, meaning you will not see your friends right immediately, right? So I was very proud in that. And the question is, did the knowledge we developed work? So I want to share with you a picture. We published the framework about like Thursday, and this is a picture from Saturday. So this is a picture of the cute Oad Munder, a 9-year-old boy who were abducted by Hamas to Gaza and returned to Israel after 52 days. And this picture was taken in the hospital less than 24 hours after his release from Gaza. He arrived at the hospital on Friday, if you remember, at midnight. And this photo was taken on Saturday noon with his friends. So I think that this picture teaches us that the knowledge we developed was far removed from what children actually need and want. And this led us to the next stage in the knowledge development journey. We realized that we need to talk directly to children and learn from them how they believe the war affected their friendships, pre-relations. And as a result of this, and at the initiative of Haruv Institute, we decided to conduct a research among children from communities surrounding Gaza and examine how they believe the war affected their social connection and what could help them in the social domain. So we did a study with 51 children from Israeli communities surrounding Gaza, ages between 10 and 17. You can see that about 60% were evacuated. They were in hotels, and about 43% were in settlements near Gaza. And we utilized focus groups, 3 in hotels. We actually went to hotels at night, and then 3 in communities that were not evacuated but was near Gaza. And we basically asked the children 3 questions during the focus group. How do you think the war has affected your peer relation and friendships? What do you think adults such as professionals, policymakers, and parents should know about the social state of children from communities surrounding Gaza? And what do you think can be done to help children from these communities feel better with respect to their peers' relations and friendships? And I will now hand it over to Iris, my partner of the research, to show you the results.
Okay, hi everyone, thank you. I will continue my friend and colleague Hanita. The data analysis revealed 7 main areas of focus that concern the children in our studies. Due to our time limit, I will currently address only 3 themes, the highlighted ones. The central theme, which also served as the primary motivation for the study, addressed the social circle. Within this theme, we identified 2 main sub-themes. One group includes positive descriptions of the war's impact on the social circle, and the other group includes negative description. You can all observe here the topics discussed by the participants in each of the sub-themes. In the framework, in the protocol that Hanita mentioned earlier, we addressed the notion of the total disruption in the social circle and the social life due to the war. However, after conducting our study, we were surprised to discover a more complex picture. We found something we didn't expect. Social circles, in some cases, not only became stronger, but are also perceived by the children as a source of resilience and coping. I will present 2 quotes that provide insight into the children's experiences. I personally really, mamash, learned to appreciate my friendships. I realized that life is something so immense, but it can disappear in an instant. So first of all, I truly learned to respect each and every one. Another child shared, here at the hotel, because we are together all the time, I can say that at first I was sure that being together all the time would lead to many arguments and conflicts. But actually, I feel like we are much more united, and like there are far fewer arguments than there were before. Some of them share that friendship significantly help them to cope, are extremely important to them, and serve as a source of strength. It is amazing to see the rapid adaptation and the fact that the peer group serves as a resilient force, as the next quote shows. In some way, we are also trying to avoid the really hard things. The fact that we meet up all day and do things, in some way, we're trying to avoid the pain, and we're succeeding in that. On the other hand, some children describe the war that cause harm to their social connection and social isolation, which is likely a result of physical disconnection. I can also tell you that personally, most of my friends aren't around here because most of them live closer to the border, and it's hard meeting my best friend once a month, and sometimes even not even that. So yes, it's hard. Regarding to school and learning, the children talk about difficulties with concentration, challenges in gathering themselves for learning, and teachers' expectation for focus and learning that they are unable to meet. And it's really hard to concentrate, even if we didn't personally experience it, and terrorists didn't break into our homes or anything like that. It still happened to our friends, our families, and people around us. It's really hard to focus during such a time. Another quote, in my opinion, teachers need to understand that it's also very hard for us to concentrate on our studies. We have exams, assignments, and things like that. One girl shared that she often needs to leave the classroom to use the bathroom during lessons. She also mentioned that her teacher restricts her from doing so. We all understand the connection between trauma and the body and how the body holds trauma, including this way. Following this, I will address a theme that examines the children's perspective on the adults in their lives, as well as their expectations and needs from these adults. The children describe various roles and they take on within the family, compensate for the parents' lack of availability. Let's see what one participant said. Since October 7th, I've been at home. It's if I'm the mother of my little brother because my mom is unable to function. She cries every day. In the end, we try to keep ourselves busy because there really isn't any support from adults. They are like at the end of the day in meetings with community all day long. And the last quote to illustrate this, in the end, no one really asks us. I mean, if we want to say something, we really have to make an effort, so it feels like you have to shout for someone to hear you. No one really notices, and no one comes to ask, is everything okay? We learn from our study that children need adults, yet some of them keenly feel that the adults around them are preoccupied with their own struggles. leaving them emotionally and or physically unavailable to provide the support the children require. So, what in a very short time, what can we take away from all this? We reached several conclusions. I will elaborate on 2 or 3 key conclusions related to the theme we have demonstrated before. We saw how important and meaningful is to ask children how they feel, what they think, how they perceive reality, and what they believe will help them. Children are experts in their own lives, and therefore it is essential to involve them in decision-making and policy setting. As one child wrote at the end of the written questionnaire, talk to the children and ask for their opinion. Try to understand what they want and need and implement it. Especially in a mass disaster of this kind, when a national tragedy occurs, the natural tendency is to focus on the individual, the community, the family, and parents. However, we rarely encounter references in the literature to peer groups and social relationships. This research demonstrated how crucial these are and how much peer groups serve as a source of resilience for children and entire community. To conclude, the children were pleased to take part in the research. They expressed gratitude for being heard and listened to, and it seemed meaningful for them to share their perspectives on these issues and participate in the study. Our research revealed that children possess remarkable coping attitudes and resilience. This is true both individually and also within the peer groups. Thank you.
We will take questions at the end, and we will jump to the second presentation by Tamar Kama and Dr. Orna Shemer, and they will present to us the study on how children in the Western Negev understand communities.
So, hello everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. I will begin my lecture with a prayer for the safety of the hostages and their return home. This image was taken by me today at 6:30 on my way here, showing the hostages symbol in the sky against the background of the sunrise. I guess a lot of you saw this symbol in the sky this morning. This context, which reflects that we are still within the event we are studying, is significant for all of the lecturers here. I will provide a brief background to the research that Tamar will present. The October 7th war encountered many of us in very personal places. For many professionals, the tragic events that took place brought together the professional and the personal. This experience has been with me for many months, as the war, and especially the process of coping with its consequences, met me both personally and professionally as someone who has lived for many years in rural and cooperative communities and also researched them. From here, it was clear to me that the strengths of the communities, the ethos, the heritage, the internal organization capacity, the strong interpersonal connection, and many other parameters would provide a healing capital for the members. From here, Immediately after the outbreak of the war, the Harub Institute mobilized to write a position paper, or like Asher told us, the protocols for the Ministry of Welfare. One of the papers deals with creating working model and recommendation for training social workers in community resilience. While writing the documents, a month after the outbreak of the war, I had already seen the healing power of the communities in the South, which alongside shock, trauma, evacuation, grief, hostages, and the bombarded settlements they left behind, many found the strength to receive help and to revive their natural resilience mechanism. The position paper I wrote was addressed to both rural and urban communities in both the South and the North, but in-depth exploration of the mechanisms that enable community resilience highlighted distinctions between different types of communities. From this, we recognize the need to conduct research in various communities and identified through these studies the community characteristics that facilitate process of growth. Therefore, the research we will present here today is a continuation of that protocol in which the understanding emerged that it is essential to document and generate distinct knowledge that can be translated into practice. In the study we will present, we will address community resilience through two specific areas. The first is the kibbutz communities in the Western Negev settlements, an area in which dozens of communities were directly affected. Most of the community were evacuated on October 7th or October 8th to hotels and gradually returned to their settlements, although several communities have not yet returned. Today, in this lecture, we will focus on the kibbutz communities, communities whose members live in varying degrees of economic and social cooperation. Thus, among the members, there are mutual responsibility relations, dependence on each other, and they are interconnected in many ways. In other words, from childhood, there are tight relationships between them. Additionally, they are relatively intergenerational, small and peripheral communities that together with the regional council provide their members with the most of the services in terms of education, culture, and welfare. This also means that the intensity of grief and collective loss that their members, both children and adults, are dealing with is profound. The second focus is in this lecture is on the world of adolescence. The period of adolescence is characterized on the one hand as a time of development, discovery, and growth, and on the other hand as a fragile and crisis-filled period of self-formation as part of a journey of subjective identity research. For the adolescents in the kibbutzim of the Western Negev, during the war, additional areas of coping were added related to the loss and burning they experience, the trauma of the war, the consequences of prolonged evacuation from the home, and the impact of the crisis of their parents and community. In the protocol we issued on behalf of the Harov Institute, many features of community resilience were emphasized. One of them speaks of the risk of external interventions in the community, while maintaining community autonomy and increasing the community involvement of all its members across all ages. Following these insights during the presentation of Tamar, I invite you to look for the strengths of the adolescents and of the context around them, and to see how what they tell us reflect the strengths and the opportunities provided by the spaces around them, precisely because of their cooperative and community-oriented nature.
Thank you, Ona. Hello, everyone. The research I've been doing is about the meaning of community for youth from the Western Negev kibbutzim. This research focuses on resilience mechanism among youth from the kibbutzim in the Western Negev. Specifically, it explores how these youths coped during the Iron Swords War. The aim of this study is to identify the mechanisms that help adolescents maintain resilience in challenging circumstances. The methodology. The study employed a qualitative research approach to gain detailed understanding of the perspective of youth living in the kibbutzim of the Western Negev. 14 participants aged 15 to 17 from 8 kibbutzim were interviewed from May 2024 to October 2024. Most of the participants were evacuated during the interview. The collected data was analyzed using thematic analysis, which identified several key themes. The presentation focuses on the role of community as a resilience mechanism for those youth. The findings reveals various aspects of resilience associated with kibbutzim community: the space of the peer group, the space of the community, and the space between the individual and the community. The space of the peer group, social coping during the war. Adolescence is a transitional period characterized by significant physical, emotional, and social changes. During this time, peer group play a pivotal role in the individual development. In the kibbutzim, this peer group hold particular significance, as children grow up alongside the same group from birth, forming bond similar to sibling relationships. Since kibbutzim are relatively small and remote, these relationships are both unique and deeply impactful. While schools expand their social circles to include peers from nearby settlements, the original kibbutz peer group remains highly influential throughout adolescence. Distant from friends. With the onset war, each kibbutz evacuated to a different area of the country, leading to the separation of many teenagers from their broader circle of friends. For many, this isolation was a source of great difficulty. Negev, a 17-year-old girl, described this period of social challenging. At the end of 12th grade, you're supposed to have the most friends, but everyone evacuated to Eilat, Netanya, Keisaria, and Tel Aviv, each to their own area. I moved with my mother to A. My friends were in B for a month or so, but B didn't suit me. I wanted to be close to my family, so I was cut off from everyone. Negev's experience of being separated from her friends and confined to monotonous routine underscore the difficulty of maintaining social connection during the evacuation. Resilience through unity. Despite the challenges, many youth found strength and resilience in the peer group that remained with them. The shared experience of trauma created a sense of unity and mutual understanding. For instance, 15-year-old Noya expressed how her peer group strengthened their bond. I'm with my friends and I'm not alone. This war has made everybody very united. Even before we were close, but now it's like we're all bond. We're all one, from grade 7 to 12 on the kibbutz. We're together all day and it's brought us even closer. It's been good. Noya's experience reflects how the collective trauma fostered a stronger sense of unity, enabling youth to rely on each other for emotional support. Opportunity for new friendships. Evacuation also presented opportunities to form new friendships. Many youth describe adapting to their new environments as a positive experience. Gal, a 15-year-old, shared her perspective. The kids here are really nice. I like that they don't see us different. Even though we've had our time being evacuated and out from the school, they treat us like everyone else. Gal felt that she and her friends were welcomed and treated differently, and not treated differently from others. She shared that they form new friendships and described the experience as joyful, even amidst the challenges. These experiences illustrated a social continuum, from feeling disconnected and isolated to bonding with familiar peers to building new relationships and in unfamiliar settings. The community space. The community as an anchor that enables an experience of cohesion and support. The kibbutz community is built on principles of mutual support and solidarity, creating strong social safety nets. During the war, this close-knit structure became an anchor for youth, fostering a sense of cohesion and resilience. Internal organization. Even during the evacuation, kibbutzim maintained their commitment to mutual aid. Tomer, a 17-year-old, shared how his mother participated in organizing resources. My mom volunteered to the kibbutz department store, which was full of donations for people who didn't even bring shoes with them. It was a crazy time. This internal organization helped to mitigate the challenges of evacuation and provided a sense of stability. Mutual support. Many youth describe the kibbutz community as a source of unwavering support. Dahel, a 16 years old, explained, "Everyone supports each other because we've all had a hard time. If someone's struggling, people step in to help him. There are amazing people here, and I love everyone. They're always there when you need them." Such mutual support not only alleviates immediate challenges, but also strengthens personal and collective resilience. Shared traumatic fate. The sense of shared fate provided an emotional safety net for many teenagers. Ayala shared, "The people here make you feel like we're all in the same boat. Even though we've been evacuated, we're still a community. Whether we're on a trip or just together, this allows us to feel the trauma is shared by all of us." Ayala's kibbutz was evacuated to a remote location, living or feeling deeply disconnected from our friends in other settlements. However, she described our community as a source of strength, helping her to cope with the loneliness and challenges of the evacuation. The familiar faces and the shared experience of the community members reassured her that everyone was enduring the same tragedy and facing similar difficulties. This realization comforted Ayala and reinforced her sense of not being alone. This shared experience reinforced a sense of belonging and provided foundation for coping with the trauma she experienced. The space between the individual and the community. Community involvement and influence. The kibbutz culture emphasized active participation and shared decision making, fostering a strong sense of belonging and significance among members. Tomer, a 17-year-old, shared how he had advocated to join local class during evacuation. "I told my teacher that I needed to integrate here. If I'm already in this new place, let's make it the most of it. Meet new people and take advantage of the opportunity." This proactive involvement not only helped Tomer to integrate into his new environment, but also strengthened his sense of purpose and belonging. Similarly, Ayala described the importance of having a meaningful role within the community. "I wanted to hear, 'We need you. You're important.' That's what we were all looking for. It gives you a reason to get up in the morning." For the youth in contributing to the community during time of crisis, fostered a resilience and empowered them to navigate their challenges with purpose. The study highlights the profound impact of community as a resilient mechanism for youth from Western Negev kibbutzim. Whether through peer bonding, mutual support, shared experience, or active involvement, the kibbutzim community provided foundation for emotional strength and coping during the Iron Sword War. This research underscored the importance of fostering community connection as a critical tool for youth resilience in time of crisis. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tamar and Orna, and we'll move to the third one. Dr. Daphna Gross-Manos will talk about findings from talking with children in the northern part of Israel.
Okay, hello. So my name is Daphna, and I'm coming from Tel Chai College. That is Tel Chai College, which was evacuated during the war, and is still evacuated, and we are not going to come back this year. And I will share a bit of the perspective of youth in the north. And this study will focus on this region, which is the Eastern Galil regional cluster. It combined the Golan and Etzba Galil and a little bit almost until Tzfat, basically. So it's a big area. And I will present also by like with this study that was also conducted with my friend Ayala Cohen, who is also the head of the knowledge center of Eastern Galil Regional Cluster. And we did this study together after a series of other studies we've done with evacuated population. We decided we also need to focus about the people that were still there. So this is basically the idea. I'll not, a lot of the stuff is kind of neutral to what we've seen, so I will not kind of repeat everything. So the Iron Swords War, of course, had a critical effect of all citizens, and in the north, basically, for at least this region, there's a huge difference between really a few miles from one area to another. But basically, everyone were affected, and for children and youth, the main change was the education. A lot of children had to change school, or either their school were only for 3 hours a day. And of course, the rest of the part is, and maybe the beginning, is the constant threat, loud noises, bombing all the time. Even if they didn't have to go to the shelter daily, only once a week or twice a week, they hear all the time everything. And they also needed to stay, of course, close to a shelter because it was not safe and not predictable. And this is a situation that is happening basically for a year and 2 months until it changed only in the last 2 weeks. There has been somewhat more focus, and well, I cannot say it totally, from the literature because there have not been a lot of anything this year, but at least we felt that on displaced population there was a little bit more attention. We done a larger research with youth from Kiryat Shmona and their parents and other groups, and then we realized, all these areas we've done research with them in the past. It's our, town area as being in Tel Chai, and we really felt we need to go back to them also during this time and see what's going on and how they kind of experience this whole situation. And in general, we thought, like, if we look at the literature, we know that most of the literature about youth during war, connected to war, is usually after the war. So we also thought it is interesting to see while everything is really going on and how they feel directly. So that was kind of the idea. We've done, it was a mixed method study, which actually the main component was focus group, but we also ran a short survey, which included 150 youth from the non-evacuated Eastern Galil part. And here I actually analyzed only 120 because we're still not sure if it really makes sense to combine, because some of this was collected during the escalation in the war and a lot of things changed, like in the north. So we still need to figure out if it's right to combine those samples. So we'll see. So this is like the initial sample before the escalation in the end of September. Age range between 12 and 15, and they came from 25 different places in the Eastern Galil cluster, one city, which is Tzfat, 2 3-letter towns, and a lot of kibbutzim and moshavim and yishuvim kilatim, which I couldn't find a good translation to. So a little bit about their lives. So most of them did not leave the area. Only 6% left to time between a week and 10 months. 50% of them had to change school. One of the things that is interesting, and I don't know if you know, but a lot of the kids, even from Rosh Pina in this area, they actually go to school in the kibbutzim. And the kibbutzim is like mixed, that is actually still divided between the Miuchad and the Ichud. And this is, so there's no geographical sense to it so much. And that's why a lot of, much more of the pupils than you would expect had to change schools, because they were actually schooling northward to where they live. So 50% had to change school. A lot of them, even if they didn't change school, their mates changed, their peers Almost 50% said, they're not in the same class as they used to. Frequency of going to school, I have to say this is much better rates than we've seen with the evacuated groups. Almost, more than 30%. Like, let's say that 66% said they're going regularly, which is good and much better than what we've seen in the evacuated areas. But when they go to school, a lot of them did not go for a long time. So you can see it's like really third by third. Third only went to school for up to 12 hours, third to up to 24 hours, and only a third went to like more regular time of school of a bit more than 24 hours a week. And here is a little bit from everything I have to say is really initial. So we just finished collecting. We were supposed to finish earlier, and then the escalation of the war happened. And basically the last focus group was last week. So it's really hot from the oven. And a little bit of what we can see that they are not satisfied from their school and the situation. This was something that we've seen in the focus group. You'll see a little bit in a bit. So we can see about 20% said they're not satisfied at all, and another 20% said they're a little bit satisfied because everything about this change did not work for them, and it was appeared in everything. What I want to improve at school, this is like they had an open question, so it's a little bit of what was kind of repeated there. So better relationship with the teachers, to study properly because they didn't feel like they study at all, at least last year, and more social activity and go back to our regular school, even if it's bombed. So this is also something that was for the main school there, like their gym was totally crashed, and they still said, it was still like, we want to go back there. So about France, I have to say, we didn't I think it resembles a little bit of what we've seen from Hanita study, and basically their friendships actually got better. They felt like the friends, a lot of time compared to the adults, were the one who were there for them, feeling that friends support emotionally is slightly higher. Friends generally support was currently significantly higher. So this generally improved, and their satisfaction with the friends was very high. And this is kind of works well with what we found when we asked them about what worries them. So friends was the lowest, but their studies was the thing that kind of worried them the most. And this is kind of, again, repeated also in the focus group. We also asked them about their satisfaction from life. So it's always a number that in the end it's a mean, so it's hard to kind of understand what it means. So what I did here, I compared it from our data about 12 years old in Israel from 2019, but it is a representative sample. And I have to say, I don't know how much of you know about subjective well-being, and these kind of measures are very, very stable. So we don't see a huge change from even in 5 years. So these drops that you can see in the orange bars that are from our sample is quite significant. So 7.6, it doesn't sound low when you think about a scale of 0 to 10, but in well-being, it's low. And we can see that there is a drop in all the satisfaction scale, and especially about the safety. How safe you feel and your safety in the future, which we couldn't compare because we didn't ask in the past, was pretty low. We also asked openly, what would make you feel safer? So to be with friends, which also kind of connects what we've seen, more shelters and safe rooms also in outdoors area was something that also we heard a lot and was written a lot there. That the government will pay attention to the north, which is also something you'll see we heard a lot, and to share my feelings with someone and to be with my family. A couple of stuff we actually looked at the children, because we have about 50-50 of children who had to change their school and kids and youth that didn't have to change their school. So we compared it, and we actually saw that those who had to change their school really performed, showed much lower rates in their satisfaction from school, in how much they were worried about relationship with friends, how much they are listened to by adults. And these are all significant differences, and also how often feeling sad was also like those who were in different school felt much more sad. So this is something that kind of teach us. And also I have to say that I think this is the first study, I'll relate to it in a bit, that we're doing, and we're analyzing, and we're trying to change everything here and now. So a lot of it is actually really telling us what we should do, at least the way I see it. And we are trying to show it to the people who needs to see it. Here we also asked about how they think Israel is handling the situation. And at the left side, the blue one, you can see combined not at all or a little trust in the government about this, or satisfaction. And basically we see that they think that they're not satisfied the most was mental well-being, and they did not feel that Israel managed to take care of its citizens' mental well-being, after that economic state and quality of life. And I have to say it was kind of surprising for me that kids over there in the north, only 42% said they don't think that the Israel managed to take care of their safety well. I thought it would be higher. So they actually were more worried about mental well-being and economic state. Messages from the youth to policymakers. Again, this is in the questionnaire. Don't forget the North. Bring the hostages back. Don't forget the youth. And start next year properly. Most of the data was collected during like the holiday, not the holiday, during the summer break. More activities and sports center at the north, which I think kind of connects. I don't know how much you know, but you know, the main center in Metula was also totally crushed, like Merkaz Canada. And this is something that a lot of the youth really kind of miss, and they talk about it, that they're not going to be able to rebuild it, and it worries them. And now a little bit about the focus group. So we collected data from 6 focus groups with 36 children, youth the same age, 12 to 15. And one of this group was religious. The rest was kind of a mix of, again, kibbutzim, moshavim, and so on. And we asked them kind of like what you've seen in the nature of the questionnaire, how your life has changed, how your social life has changed, friends and all that, their school, and what they would like to tell adults about their situation. And again, this is preliminary because I said, you know, we just finished, we did most of the data collection during the summer, and then there was the escalation in the north, and we couldn't really drive in most of the area we planned to go, so we kind of had to stop. We did one group in the middle of the situation, then the last one last week. So it's really kind of preliminary, but still I think a lot of the stuff was kind of like hard to miss. So participants expressed a lot of frustration with forced limitation in the area, the fact that they couldn't go a lot of areas, that their parents wouldn't let them go, that they felt like the area they could go was really kind of restricted and changed. In general, what helped them, and this really resembles the other studies we've seen, is being busy and with friends. Also was repeated a lot. Participants reported experiencing a sense of accelerated maturity. They felt that the situation about just knowing about what happened in October 7th and what they had to handle, and also the fact that a lot of time they shared that they had to be in charge of other kids, especially in small community in the kibbutzim. Since in the first 2 months, most of them their main day was keeping the little kids active, and they talked about that a lot. And also they mentioned that providing care actually really helped them to feel more calm and to feel less scared. So there was also a good side to that. You've reported that there is often difficulty with adults' attitude to the situation in terms that they are normalizing an abnormal situation. This is also repeated a lot. You know, this is not normal. We're not supposed to live like this. How come everybody is like not letting us talk about the situation and just going on? And so this was repeated a lot, especially with referring to their teachers. And this kind of connects me to the next point. They felt the education system did not support them properly during the war situation. many said, I have to say it's not all. Some said their teachers support them, that they had some discussion in class, but most of the kids said there was not any room for kind of emotional discussion, even the most basic one, and everything was kind of like repressing and putting everything aside. They felt that it didn't make sense to be expected to just go on and study as if everything was regular. Especially they even mentioned, there is an alarm, we go to the shelter, we go back, we have to study like nothing happened, and they felt like, it's okay, but give us 5 minutes, let us make sure, our family is okay. So and this also repeated a lot. There are big educational gap, and this worried them a lot. Most of them said, we lost the whole year, and nobody really supports. We don't get any extra resources to kind of overcome this. They expressed a sense of marginalization in general, also repeated in all the focus group, lack of interest from decision maker in their situation compared to residents in the central Israel. How much time we have?
2 more minutes.
2 more. Okay. So I have a lot of quotes, but I'll skip and I'll do only some of them. I knew that will happen. So, and you heard the bottom line. So I'll take like 2 from each one. The most scary thing, and the one that has changed the most, in my opinion, is that the fear that is still inside. When you hear a door slamming or hear a plane, it's terrible to live like this. In amount of fear for every sound you hear. Say the noise of a truck in the middle of the night, you think your life is being bombed, like this. We try to be doing as much as possible and think less about it. And the beginning of the war, we would volunteer all day in kindergartens and with children, and then you don't think about it. It's just fun. It helps us. They are normalizing it, the situation. Don't normalize it. It's not normal. We shouldn't feel that it's okay that we are being attacked with missiles and that they are like people who have been abducted. And everyone, and this is also about the maturity and everything, and also resembles some of we've seen from the other studies. Everyone after October 7 realized how much life has such a great meaning. Only now we understand the meaning of such big things, as if I could say about people that I hate them in the past. And now that I look at it, it's huge word, and the hatred is only for Hamas and Hezbollah. Also feel and think that this war made us almost everyone grow up, because I think that before the war, really almost I didn't understand anything about life. I didn't know anything. And now with the war, so maybe it's a little sad, but I know a lot of things. And maybe 1 or 2 more. The government, I think, the government is not specifically abandoning us. I think the government is relatively abandoning everyone. No, I think the government is abandoning the entire country. Some also, and this was expressed a lot, did feel that the north is the abandoned part. I just think that the media and policymakers should, also have to check what's wrong with us. It seems to be, to me, that the whole north has a lot of alarms and things like that, but they don't talk about it. Let's say there was one thing missile in Tel Aviv, and it's like the whole world is talking about it. The whole world is on its feet. Okay, so, and this was also a point, they were really mad about this. How come, a lot of times they notice it by, the regular, what is in the media, what is in the channels. And they say, how come when we have alarms, they don't stop, the regular, programs. And when there is one missile in Tel Aviv, they stop everything, and we have it all the time. Okay, so initial conclusion. So in general, significant resources and focused attention are required to navigate the challenges posed by the war. Teachers need comprehensive support to create a safe space for students to process their emotional and engage in meaningful discussion about their experience. I have to say that thanks to Hauv Institute that supported also this part of this research, we already started sessions for teachers. So I think it's my first study that is actually changing things while it's happening. So it's really, and it's just really important to see it and really critical. And we actually, even now that we met the teacher, we even understand even more how much it is needed. Substantial resources are critical to address the significant learning gaps and prioritize moving schools back. And this is kind of to say different perception of like a lot of the adults now, they build 2 new schools and they're so proud in the way that they build so fast new school, but the youth is really not satisfied. You know, they talk about we don't have anywhere to sit, we don't have any tree, we don't have rooms. We hear all the facility is really not so good. And in a way, I think some of the, you know, the people who created this are kind of like really proud of that. So, okay, they can stay there the whole year. And they would really prefer as much as possible, of course. So that's their voice, to go back to their school. And one last point is we need to recognize, I have to say, I don't even know how yet, but recognize and harness students' resilience and maturity to empower them as they navigate the challenges to rebuild their lives and to see how we can do that. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dasha. And we are moving to the last presentation by Dr. Ayelet Noam Rosenthal. We'll talk about the protocol of helping children who lost both their parents on October 7th. Ayelet.
Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to be here. I'm very thankful for the opportunity to speak here today. So today I will introduce, as Asher mentioned, the framework for supporting children who lost both their parents in the Iron Swords War. And I must admit that while in the Haruv Institute we know a lot about childhood trauma and child abuse, this was actually a very, very new case. It was something that we never met before in this scope. And when you look at the literature in the world, you see that it is not something familiar. So, of course, on October 7th, we had to deal with a new reality where 23 children from 12 families lost both of their parents. Either their parents were murdered or kidnapped. And this really unprecedented situation required the immediate development of an initial framework of a preliminary guidelines for systematic intervention aimed at providing emotional, social, and legal support for these children. So, as Asher mentioned, the Haruv Institute, in collaboration with the Ministry of Welfare, we developed this comprehensive intervention model, which emphasizes the psychosocial approach that views the child as an inseparable part of all contexts or surroundings in his life. And while each child's journey through the trauma is unique, yet it requires a coordinated support across multiple systems. So as I mentioned, we didn't know a lot about how to deal with these cases, but we had 4 main theoretical frameworks that helped us navigate through this journey of formulating this framework. So, of course, developmental studies that acknowledges that each age group has specific and unique needs and responses to trauma. The trauma studies, we understood, of course, that we must apply trauma-informed practices to those cases. Research regarding loss, and the attachment theory that highlights promoting strategies that rebuild secure attachments. And as I mentioned, we realized that we have to adopt a systematic contextual view that recognizes that children who have lost both parents have multiple personal and social needs. The opportunities to help them lie in all those various contexts in their lives, and it requires coordination, it requires case management in the intervention across all those spheres of support. So these are the 4 main contexts that we identified. And I must mention that each family until today was assigned with a social worker. We call it עובדת סוציאלית מתכללת, like a case manager that will be coordinating a synergetic communication among all those contexts and promote interventions in all those contexts. And I'm talking about the child-centered context, the relational context, the legal and rights context, and the community context, and I will elaborate on each one. But firstly, the interventions, all interventions in all contexts have 4 core ideas or beliefs that we think we need to promote. First We want to provide validation and visibility to the child and what he went through. We want to promote positive worldview among all those children. We want to provide choice and autonomy as much as possible, which is very, very difficult in some of these cases, but it is highly important. And we want to promote the child's sense of capability. So when we look at the child-centered context intervention, when we look at the child-centered intervention, we're talking first and foremost about trauma-informed practices. We want to, a loss of a parent during childhood and early years is certainly a context of trauma. We know that now, and it recalls for a trauma-informed therapeutic responses. Trauma has immediate implications for children's ability to learn and explore, for their relationship with significant figures in their lives, and for their emotional regulation. So the central goal of trauma-informed treatment is to identify the trauma manifestations among children and provide appropriate and adapted responses to these manifestations. It's also important to help the child return to their developmental track, promote their abilities to develop a curiosity about their environment, learn new skills, advance their attachment capabilities, and their emotional regulation. So we have knowledge about trauma-informed care. We divided the recommendations to age groups. When younger children, ages 1st to 6, were assigned or were recommended to get dyadic trauma-informed care. And the older children, which usually, by the way, we recommend like personal treatment, we also highlighted the importance of working with the new caregivers in the child life. And the emphasis is on creating a narrative about the loss of the parents and about the traumatic events. We also want to identify manifestations of grief and loss in the children. Among younger children, the manifestations will be more physical and behavioral. For example, sleep difficulties, eating difficulties, difficulty separating from significant adults when entering educational settings, lack of playfulness, fear of going to the bathroom alone, calling for deceased parents, prolonged crying. In response to these manifestations, it's important to validate symptoms of longing and normalize complex feelings around the parent's absence. For example, say, it's okay that you're angry at mom, that she's not here with you now. I'm sure if she could, there's nothing she would want more than to be here with you. It is also important to address feeling of guilt and expression of negative self-attributions. It's important not to be alarmed by harsh statements that the child might make about himself, and to direct questions aimed at understanding, like, you feel that you hate yourself, tell me more about that, alongside giving possibility to express these feelings and thoughts. We also want to encourage questions and open discussions from children about the loss and the longing and the grief, while reminding that there are benevolent figures in their lives, that there are people who will keep them safe, and we want to encourage enjoyable and close interactions with those figures and the child. I will move on to the relational context. So alongside direct intervention with the child, there is central importance to intervention with significant figures in their life while promoting attachment and security with them. We want to strengthen those relationships with significant others and building the narratives, which I just mentioned. But it is also, many times we overlook the importance of siblinghood. And research shows that during trauma and loss, the siblings system is very, very important. And we want to reinforce the sibling system as a crucial anchor for the emotional support and the regulation of the grief for the children. And as mentioned before, and it really corresponds with the previous lectures, the peer relationships is a very, very important relational context, which is sometimes often overlooked when we're talking about children's trauma. I think the most intuitive relational intervention is with the parents, and we highlighted that preserving and nurturing friendships help to maintain the social connections are very, very crucial. The next context is the community context. And this was a very complex thing to deal with. First, because community, as mentioned before, is including both formal and informal systems, but also many of the children didn't come back to their original community. So they lost twice. They lost their family members, but they also lost the community anchor. So we recommended that as much as possible to maintain the relationships with the previous community, of course, both the formal and informal agents in those communities, but also promote new relationships in the new community, which means even the physical things. For example, meeting the new pediatrician, knowing the hours of the clinic, and also promoting activism in the new community, if the child wants so, of course. But we found that activism can be a very, very promotive resilience factor among those children. And of course, the last context is the legal and rights context. And I must say this is a very tricky one, because if I said we don't know a lot about cases like that, usually the cases where you have to find a guardian for a child is in like high conflict divorce or children from the welfare system. And here we had a new situation in many, many cases. There were arguments about who will be the guardian, and the social workers and the judges say, I have to pick from good to good. And it's a very, very hard thing to do. We recommended that permanent decisions will be made as soon as possible, but we found out it was very, very difficult many times. And some of the children have only temporary decisions about where they grow up, which of course affects the way we can intervene in the other context. But the most optimal situation is to promote ensuring legal guardianship as soon as possible, and of course ensuring the financial entitlements of the child, securing appropriate financial support and benefits and all the services he or she are entitled to. We want to promote the child's best interest, of course, in all legal matters, and I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to give the child the opportunity to express his or her views and opinions and needs, not only in the legal sphere, but also in the educational, the healthcare sphere, the community sphere, and guaranteeing, of course, access to all services needed. But in order to promote this framework, we realized that we must address the professionals working with those children, and that there are multiple professional needs. And the training of the social workers is still ongoing. I think they meet once a week, Asher, right? They meet once a week. And we understood that it is highly important to create a network of professionals, because dealing with those cases of trauma by yourself can be really, really difficult. It can create, we can see it. It creates secondary traumatic stress among the workers. Also, it's not like those social workers only do this job. They still do their ongoing job in the welfare system, but they also have those cases, which are usually very complex. So the ongoing training, and I think we learn during this ongoing training about new needs that arises, and we have to be very, very flexible about the way we learn together. Also consultation services, experts guidance for complex cases. As I said, I think most of the 23 children that I mentioned are complex. I mean, how can it not be complex when you lose both parents? And also giving the professional strategies to deal with secondary trauma prevention. By the way, not just the social workers. We can see it also with the attorneys, the judges, the healthcare providers. Everyone that are in direct contact in those cases are affected by it. And case management supervision. We want regular oversight and support and supervision for all workers. So this is really, really an important context. As I mentioned, these are the 4 key principles that we want to maintain in all contexts. The validation for the child, to help him restore control over his life, providing choices is really, really important when you deal with trauma. The beneficial worldview that we want to promote, and development capability. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ayelet, and thank you all the presenters. We managed not only to start later, but also to finish a little bit earlier, so there is room for 2 or 3 questions. I want to say one remark of a challenge that we face now, and that is that the children, the adolescents, the children, the youth, are also shaping the services and the answers. And I'll give you one example of a new phenomenon that we are dealing with. There is a growing number of adolescents who are living alone in the envelope of the Gaza Strip. Those are kids who decided they want to go back to the regular school or their old school. Their parents are unwilling to go back to the settlements, or the settlements like Be'eri, one of the kibbutzim, is still evacuated. So they live in Hatzerim and they go to another high school, but the kid says, no way, we are going back with our friends. And we are seeing a growing number of kids who are living alone. And even though we are trying to shout it out and tell the services nothing good would come from adolescents who went through the trauma of October 7, living alone in some of those places without anybody noticing what's happening to them, especially that some of the settlements are still deserted. The answers are not yet there, but they are forcing us to do things. When the high school the high school that was most impacted by numbers, Nofe Absor, from the Regional Council of Eshkol, who lost 11 students, and 9 were kidnapped, and about 100 students and staff, one of the direct families members, were killed or kidnapped. When it reopened with 800 kids. This year, in September 1, out of 1,200. Now there's 950. The kids are forcing their families to go back. Not only them. We met, and this is the last remark I'm going to say, we met with the secretary of another high school in Yad Mordechai, and asked her, okay, how is life coming back to Yad Mordechai? She said, I would have never come back. But I have 2 kids, 17 and 18 years old, and they told me, either you come back with us, or we come back alone, and you could stay in Tel Aviv. So the kids are also shaping the system, and not only being shaped by it. And the more we realize it, the more we'll acknowledge what they need and what they would say, we'll be able to shape better services. So now 2 or 3 questions, and then we'll ask those who are, you will write when you're sitting back. Yes, please. We can hear you.
Okay. First of all, thank you so much for such extraordinary important research. I'm coming from the Holocaust research field. So my question is, do you refer to experience of people who worked with traumatized Holocaust survivors' children, especially immediately after? During the aftermath period, because it was very fresh and it was very important work that was done. Thank you.
I'll take 2 more questions and then, yeah, please.
Thank you. Let me first of all also thank for absolutely extraordinary presentations, though a bit scary, but this is our reality. I have a question to the speaker on the situation at the north, and I'm wondering. She said that there was no rooms for discussion for kids of discussion of the situation, and the teachers tried to make the schooling schedule as a routine practice, as if nothing happened. Whether it was intentionally done, this is a kind of a policy or strategy, or it was just done because they didn't know what to do and just lack of. Yes.
Daphne will answer in a moment. 1 more, and then we'll answer the 3 and we'll finish. Yes, please.
Hi, so thank you so much. This was so important to hear, especially children and young people's perspectives on this situation and how they're shaping the situation as well. I'm going to bring my own interest, which is children's friendships. And thank you so much for shining a light on that, because it does usually not get enough acknowledgement. And I wanted to ask if, because I think it touched on all the presentation, if you can elaborate a little bit more about how they felt that these friendships help with their resilience and support. There was some mention of distraction and fun, but I was wondering if they also talked about the situation. It was also emotional support. And also if there were tensions in friendships, because in the end, friendships, like every close relationship, they're complex and there can be challenges in that. So if anyone wants to take this up, thank you.
We start with Daphna on the north, and then Hanita and Iris will talk about friendships, and then I will answer about the Holocaust.
Okay, so generally, I don't think it was deliberate. It was not intentional not to talk about it. I think the teachers generally did not get any support and they were afraid about, opening some Pandora box they wouldn't control, and they were just not skilled enough. That's why I think they need more, training so they will know how to handle the situation. And at the same time, a lot of them are just devastated. They're just burnout, total burnout. They're handling the situation. Some of them are evacuated themselves, some of them different situations, and they don't have the capacity, So a lot of time the youth describe that they're supporting, like if there's alarm, they're supporting the teacher to go. So yeah, but I think generally they just did not receive enough training. And I will shortly connect to the second question about friendship. Just, I think a lot of it connect about talking. So they did say they talk a lot about the situation with friends. For example, at the North, when they said, the teacher don't talk with us about anything, and they were very, they enjoyed the sessions with us talking about, they said like, among our friends, for example, everybody share where is their hiding place, where they stashed food if there will be the same situation like in Gaza Strip in the north. So they prepared, and it's like a normal discussion that everybody shares. So I think sharing is a huge part.
Hanita or Iris, you want to add something? Briefly.
Yes. So first of all, they told us that just hanging out together and talking together and avoiding the pain together, as we saw that this is the first. And the second question was about if there was negative implication. They didn't tell us a thing about fights, right, Iris? But they did tell us something else very interesting, that it started to, what happened that subgroups of friendships started to be created. So the friends that stayed, let's say, in unevacuated community, and the friends from the hotel, they started to fight because they felt that they can't understand us anymore because we went through something very emotional. One of them told us that why they're still posting in the WhatsApp picture from the school, we are in hotels, that they don't feel how we feel. So this is what we felt, but we didn't heard about arguments or fights in the hotel. They were very united and just hanging out together, being together, and avoid the pain together, I think. Unless you have something to add about it.
Orna, something to add? Very similar. So I will answer the last two things. Yes, we looked into the Shoah experience because it's probably the only acute trauma we know that continues for more than 420 days. And that in itself is something totally different. Not the problem, but the caveat is that most of the knowledge we have about working with kids in the Shoah is very old and not as advanced as some of the knowledge we have today about psychosocial treatment to kids who are going through acute trauma. So we need to realize that difference. I'm not sure that it was all unintentional. There is the famous story about the 12th graders in Regional Council of Eshkol, that the adults decided they are going to go to 4 different schools, and they said if we are not going together, we are not going, and the adult told them it's none of your business, and they said okay, then we are not going to school, and within 2 days they opened a boarding school for them in En-Gedi. So I'm not sure that somebody thought how to harm them, but it's the way of life. We don't listen to children. And if we don't listen to children on a day-to-day basis, then we don't listen to children also after trauma. The biggest challenge here is that all of us who told the children that needs to do A or B or C in order, because we are the adults, we know we failed them. They've done what we told them and didn't save them. So that combines, and that's my last comment, the way I see it, and I'm talking about it a lot in the last year, we are facing a new form of trauma. It's not more of the same, and it's not just more severe or more widespread. The issue of betrayal, like in child maltreatment, in child maltreatment we know that the fact that the person who harms you, or the person you trusted, created different trauma than a trauma in a car accident. Here the issue of betrayal is a major one. We failed them. They've done what we told them to do, and they were unsafe. Now go back and build parental authority, community authority, teachers authority, or whatever, when you already once failed them. So we need to look on it in a totally fresh eyes, and if you won't listen to the kids, we'll never realize how to deal with it. Thank you very much.